Man pretended to be in a coma and discovered what his ex-wife, the nurse, had been hiding for years. Michael Sullivan felt the weight of despair in every fiber of his body as he signed the final divorce papers. Everything he had built over 15 years of marriage with Jennifer had vanished like smoke, and the numbers simply didn't add up. That's when he decided he needed to uncover the truth about what his ex-wife was hiding. Jennifer worked as a nurse at Mercy General Hospital on the south side of Chicago, and he knew she held secrets that could explain where all the money had gone during their separation. The plan Michael devised was too risky for any sane person, but he saw no other way out. On a rainy Tuesday morning, he drove to the hospital where Jennifer worked and, just outside the emergency room, began faking a nervous breakdown. He shouted incoherently about losing everything, about not being able to go on, until his performance became so convincing that the people around him grew genuinely alarmed. When the paramedics brought him inside, Michael had already planned every detail. In the days following his supposed breakdown, he would escalate to a catatonic state, pretending to be completely disconnected from the world around him. It was the only way to observe Jennifer without her knowing he was aware of every word, every gesture, every secret she thought was safely hidden. The first day in the hospital was harder than he'd imagined. Staying motionless for hours, controlling even his breathing, required a concentration that left his muscles aching. But when Jennifer arrived for her afternoon shift and saw him lying there in bed 12 of the psychiatric ward, Michael knew from the tone of her voice that he'd made the right choice. "Dr. Williams, this is my ex-husband," Jennifer told the attending physician with a calmness that didn't match the situation. "He's been going through a very difficult time since our divorce." What caught Michael's attention most was what she said next, when she thought he couldn't hear her. "Doctor, I need to request a transfer to another department. I can't take care of him. It would be a conflict of interest," Jennifer lied, but Michael detected the anxiety in her voice. "Of course, Jennifer, but you can visit him as family if you'd like." "Yes, I'll do that. We need to keep everything as it is, for his sake." Those words echoed in Michael's mind. Keep everything as it is. Why would she say that? What exactly did she want to keep unchanged? That same night, during the late shift, Michael heard familiar footsteps approaching his room. It was Jennifer, who thought he was sedated and unconscious. She leaned close to the bed and whispered something that made his heart race dangerously. "I hope you never find out what I did, Michael. For both our sakes, you need to stay like this." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps those of us just starting out. Now, back to the story. Michael had to exert superhuman effort to keep his heartbeat steady. The monitor beside the bed could give him away if it showed sudden changes. Jennifer stood there for a few minutes, watching him in silence, and he could smell the perfume she'd worn when they were married. It was strange how that scent, which once soothed him, now put him on high alert. By the second day, the situation grew more complicated. The head nurse, Margaret Johnson, began questioning some aspects of Michael's case. She was a woman in her 50s, with graying hair pulled into a tight bun, and had a reputation for missing nothing. "Jennifer, have you noticed that your ex-husband's vitals sometimes show inconsistencies?" asked Margaret, examining the charts clipped to the clipboard. "What do you mean?" Jennifer tried to sound uninterested, but Michael noticed the tension in her voice. "Well, look here. Last night around 2 in the morning there was a spike in his heart rate, but there's no record of nightmares or agitation in the file." Michael felt cold sweat trickle down his back. He needed to be more careful. Jennifer moved closer to the charts, pretending to analyze them, but he knew she was buying time to think of a response. "Maybe it was some involuntary reflex," she finally said. "You know how it is, Margaret. Psychiatric cases can be unpredictable." "Yes, it could be," Margaret agreed, but her tone suggested her suspicions hadn't completely faded. That afternoon, Michael began implementing the second phase of his plan. When he was alone with Jennifer, he allowed small involuntary reflexes, her barely noticeable twitch in his fingers when she touched his hand, a slight flutter of his eyelids when she spoke to him. He wanted her to believe she had some kind of exclusive control over his condition. "Michael, I know you're in there," Jennifer whispered during one of her visits. "If you can hear me, give me a sign." He slightly moved his index finger, as if it were an involuntary spasm. Jennifer smiled, but there was something unsettling in that smile Michael couldn't quite place. "There, I knew it. You've always been too strong to give up like this," she said, stroking his face. "But you need to understand some things are better left unknown. Trust me." On the third day, Michael overheard a conversation between Jennifer and the other nurses that completely changed his perception of his ex-wife. It was lunchtime, and they were at the nursing station right across from his room. With the door slightly ajar, he could hear everything. "Jennifer, I heard you got promoted to department supervisor," commented a younger nurse, one Michael hadn't seen before. "Yes, it was a surprise," Jennifer replied, though she didn't sound surprised at all. "It happened right after my divorce. A happy coincidence." "You deserve it. You've always been so dedicated," the young nurse said. "It must have been hard going through all that and still getting the promotion." Michael mulled over that information. Jennifer had never mentioned a promotion during the divorce proceedings. In fact, she'd always claimed financial struggles to justify the uneven division of assets. How had she landed such a significant promotion right after their separation? Later that same day, he received an unexpected visit. Emma, his 17-year-old daughter, appeared at the door with eyes red from crying. Michael's heart ached seeing her like that. Emma was a tall girl with long brown hair who'd inherited her mother's green eyes and her father's determination. "Dad, please, you have to wake up," Emma pleaded, holding his hand. "I know you're in there. I know you can hear me." Michael wanted to hug her, tell her he was fine, that this was all just a misunderstanding, but he couldn't reveal himself now, not when he was so close to uncovering the truth. Emma stayed for an hour, telling him about school, her friends, how much she missed their Sunday talks. "Mom said you hadn't been well for months, but I didn't believe her," Emma continued. "You've always been my hero, Dad. You can't give up now." When Emma left, Michael had to fight back tears. Pretending to be unconscious in front of his own daughter was the hardest thing he'd ever done. On the fourth night, during an especially quiet early morning, Michael witnessed something that confirmed his worst suspicions. Jennifer had returned to the hospital outside of working hours, claiming she wanted to check on his condition. But what she did next left Michael in a state of shock. Jennifer approached the bedside table and pulled out her phone. She dialed a number and waited for someone to answer. "It's me," she said quietly. "Yes, he's still the same. No, there's no sign of improvement." There was a pause as the person on the other end spoke. "I know it's risky, but we need to act fast. Are the documents ready?" Jennifer continued. Another pause. "Good. Tomorrow, I'll get his signature. The lawyer said that given his current mental state, it's completely legal." Michael felt his blood run cold. What documents were these? What signature was Jennifer planning to get while he was supposedly unconscious? "Don't worry," Jennifer concluded. "He'll never find out. And even if he does, who would believe him after all this?" She hung up and stood silently watching Michael for a few minutes. Then suddenly she leaned in and whispered in his ear, "You were always too smart for your own good, Michael. But this time, your cleverness won't save you." On the fifth day, things took a truly dangerous turn. Jennifer arrived accompanied by a well-dressed man in his 40s who introduced himself as Dr. Robert Anderson, a lawyer specializing in mental health cases. Michael instantly disliked the man. "Dr. Williams," Jennifer said to the attending physician, "this is Dr. Anderson. He's here to assess Michael's legal situation." "I see," Dr. Williams replied. "What's the concern?" "Well," the lawyer interjected, "given Mr. Sullivan's current condition, we need to discuss matters related to the administration of his assets. There are some financial obligations that can't wait for his recovery." Panic surged through Michael's body. They were here to take legal control of his finances. Jennifer had planned this from the start. "What kind of obligations?" Dr. Williams asked. "Treatment-related debts, rental issues, basic bills," the lawyer lied smoothly. Ms. Jennifer, as his ex-wife and a qualified healthcare professional, would be the most suitable person to handle these matters temporarily. "This seems irregular," Dr. Williams said, clearly uncomfortable. "We have a power of attorney signed by Mr. Sullivan before the crisis," Jennifer said, pulling a folder from her bag. "It authorizes me to make decisions on his behalf in case of mental incapacity." Michael knew it was a blatant lie. He had never signed such a document, but how could he prove it while supposedly in a catatonic state? Dr. Williams examined the papers carefully, but Michael could tell the doctor wasn't an expert in legal matters. After a few minutes, the doctor sighed and said, "Well, if the documents are in order, I don't see a legal obstacle, but I want to make it clear that any decisions involving medical treatment still go through me." "Of course, doctor," Jennifer agreed with a smile. "We only want what's best for Michael." When the three of them left the room, Michael realized he was drenched in cold sweat. His situation had become far more dangerous than he'd imagined. Jennifer wasn't just hiding secrets about the divorce, she was actively trying to take control of his life. By the 6th day, Michael decided he needed allies. He began observing the nursing staff more closely, trying to identify someone he could trust. That's when he noticed something interesting about Ashley, a nursing assistant in her mid-20s. Ashley was different from the others. She always checked the patients more carefully, took extra time to make sure they were comfortable, and Michael noticed she watched Jennifer with some suspicion. During the afternoon shift, when Jennifer came to give Michael his routine medications, Ashley was present. "Mrs. Jennifer," Ashley said respectfully, "may I ask why Mr. Sullivan is receiving this dose of sedative? It's not in the standard protocol for catatonic cases." Jennifer hesitated for a moment before answering. "It's a special prescription from Dr. Williams. Michael's case is too complicated." "I see," Ashley said, but Michael could tell she wasn't entirely convinced. That night, when Jennifer tried to administer the medication, Michael made a risky decision. The moment she placed the pills in his mouth and turned to grab a glass of water, he managed to hide them under his tongue. When she returned with the water, he pretended to swallow, but instead tucked the pills into his cheek. As soon as Jennifer left, he discreetly spat the medication into his pillow. He needed to keep his mind clear for what was coming. On the 7th day, Ashley made a discovery that would change everything. While cleaning the room, she found the pills hidden in Michael's pillow. Instead of calling Jennifer or reporting the situation, she looked straight into Michael's eyes and whispered, "I know you're awake." Michael felt his heart race. He'd been found out. But then Ashley did something unexpected. She winked at him and smiled faintly. "Don't worry," she continued in a low voice. "I don't trust your ex-wife either. There's something off about this whole story." At that moment, Michael knew he had found his ally. Slowly, very slowly, he blinked once at Ashley. It was risky, but he needed to establish communication with someone who could help him. "My God," Ashley whispered. "You really are faking it." Michael blinked twice to confirm. "All right, I'll help you," Ashley promised. "But you have to keep pretending. Your ex-wife is up to something, and I'm going to find out what." From that moment on, Michael no longer felt completely alone. Ashley began paying extra attention to Jennifer's conversations, her phone calls, the documents she carried. On the 8th day, the situation grew even more complicated when Michael's brother, Richard, showed up at the hospital, furious. Richard was 2 years younger than Michael, a burly man who worked as a civil engineer. He stormed into the room like a hurricane, demanding answers. "Jennifer, what kind of nonsense is this?" Richard shouted. "Why wasn't I called when my brother was admitted?" "Richard, please lower your voice," Jennifer said nervously. "Michael is going through a very delicate time." "Delicate, my ass." Richard was beside himself. "I found out by chance through an acquaintance who works here. You're hiding something." "We're not hiding anything," Jennifer lied. "It all happened so fast. He had a breakdown and—" "A breakdown, Michael?" Richard laughed bitterly. "My brother is the strongest person I know. He wouldn't have a breakdown over a divorce." The argument grew so heated that Dr. Williams had to intervene. Michael prayed Richard wouldn't insist on transferring him to another hospital. It would ruin his plans completely. "Mr. Richard," Dr. Williams said, "I understand your concern, but I can assure you your brother is receiving the best possible care." "I want a second opinion," Richard demanded, "and I want to speak with the doctors who've been handling his case from the start." Of course, that can be arranged, Dr. Williams agreed. Jennifer was visibly nervous. A second medical opinion could expose inconsistencies in Michael's diagnosis. She needed to act quickly to maintain control of the situation. "Richard," said Jennifer, trying to sound conciliatory, "I understand your concern. I'm suffering through all this too, but transferring Michael now could harm his recovery." "And since when do you care about his recovery?" Richard shot back. "You just got divorced, and now you're playing the worried wife." "Regardless of our relationship, I still care about him," Jennifer lied. "We're professionals here, Richard. I'm following medical protocols." Richard kept arguing for a while, but eventually Dr. Williams managed to convince him to wait a few days before making any drastic decisions. When Richard left, Michael realized time was running out. He needed to act fast. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, back to the story. On the 9th night, Ashley brought news that confirmed Michael's worst fears. During her night shift, she overheard a full phone conversation of Jennifer's. "Mr. Michael," Ashley whispered, checking if anyone was nearby. "I have to tell you what I heard. Your ex-wife was talking to someone about speeding up a process. She said you've started showing signs of improvement and that it's interfering with their plans." Michael blinked twice to show he understood. "There's more," Ashley continued. "She mentioned something about company documents. Said she needs access to the safe before you fully recover." That confirmed Michael's suspicions. Jennifer knew about his hidden financial reserves, money he'd stashed in a security vault, planning to leave as an inheritance for Emma. It was all he had left after the divorce, and Jennifer was trying to get her hands on it. "Ashley," Michael whispered, barely audible, hoping she could hear him. "I need your help." "My God, you can speak," Ashley gasped, covering her mouth with her hands. "Quiet. She might come back." Ashley glanced at the door, then leaned closer to Michael. "What do you need me to do?" "Record her conversations." "Record? How?" Michael thought fast. He needed a way to document Jennifer's conversations as proof. Phone. Hidden. Drawer. Ashley understood immediately. In the early hours when the hospital was quieter, she managed to hide Michael's phone in a strategic spot in the room, set to record automatically when it detected voices. On the 10th day, the plan almost fell apart when a veteran nurse, Nancy, noticed Michael was less sedated than he should be. "Jennifer," Nancy said, "there's something off about your ex-husband. His reflexes are more active today." "What do you mean?" Jennifer asked, clearly concerned. "Well, when I checked his blood pressure this morning, I noticed he reacted to touch. It wasn't a conscious reaction, but it was a reaction." Jennifer walked over to Michael's bed and studied his face closely. He had to exert superhuman effort to keep his expression completely neutral. "Maybe it's a sign of improvement," Jennifer finally said, but Michael heard the worry in her voice. "Or maybe the medication isn't working as expected," Nancy suggested. "I'll talk to Dr. Williams about adjusting the dosage," Jennifer said quickly. That afternoon, Jennifer arrived with an even stronger dose of sedatives. Michael knew he couldn't keep spitting them out. It would raise suspicions. He decided to take a partial dose, just enough to appear sedated, but not enough to actually cloud his mind. During the night, when she thought Michael was deeply sedated, Jennifer made the call he had been waiting to hear. "We better speed things up," she said on the phone. "He's starting to show signs of recovery. If Richard manages to transfer him from here, we'll lose our chance." The person on the other end said something that made Jennifer laugh. I know. 15 years married to him. I know exactly how he thinks. That's why we have to act now." There was a long pause. "Yes, the numbers from the safe he mumbled last night. I managed to write them all down. They're the passwords we needed." Michael was confused. He hadn't mumbled any numbers. Or had he? Maybe during a moment of semi-consciousness from the medication. "Bring the final papers tomorrow," Jennifer continued. "With the power of attorney we have, I can sign everything in his name, and if anyone questions it later, we'll just say he authorized it all before the crisis." When Jennifer hung up, Michael understood the extent of the trap he'd fallen into. She wasn't just trying to steal his money, she had planned everything meticulously, using his own staged collapse as part of the scheme. On the 11th day, things got even more complicated when Emma returned to the hospital, this time with a friend. Michael recognized the girl. It was Olivia, the daughter of an old business partner. The two were whispering near the bed when Emma said something that made Michael's heart stop. "B, something really weird is happening at home," Emma said. "My mum sold Grandma's house without telling me." "What do you mean?" Olivia asked. "The house my grandma left me in her will. Mum said she had to sell it to pay for Dad's hospital bills, but she wouldn't let me see the papers." Michael felt anger rise in his throat. Jennifer's mother's house had been left specifically to Emma. It was a small property in rural Illinois worth a considerable amount. Jennifer had no legal right to sell it. "That doesn't sound right," Olivia said. "Can't you talk to a lawyer?" "With what money?" Emma sighed. "Mom controls everything now. She said Dad didn't leave anything for me because he was in debt." That was another lie. Michael had left everything carefully arranged for Emma. Bank accounts, investments, and the safe with the reserves he kept secret. Jennifer was lying to her own daughter about the inheritance. That night, Ashley brought more troubling news. "Mr. Michael," she whispered, "I found out something about your ex-wife's promotion. I talked to some senior colleagues, and they said it was really strange. Jennifer jumped ahead of several more experienced nurses." Michael blinked, urging her to go on. "One of them mentioned that the department head, Dr. Harrison, started acting weird after Jennifer got promoted. Some say he seems intimidated by her." This opened a new line of suspicion in Michael's mind. Could Jennifer be blackmailing Dr. Harrison? How had she gotten compromising information on the chief? "Ashley," Michael whispered, "need investigate. Dr. Harrison." "Investigate how?" "Files. Computer. His—" Ashley hesitated. What Michael was asking could get her in serious trouble if she was caught. "It's risky, Mr. Michael. Please, only chance." The desperation on Michael's face convinced her. She knew he wasn't faking that anguish. "Okay, I'll see what I can do." On the 12th day, Ashley discreetly accessed Dr. Harrison's computer during lunch. What she found was shocking. There was a hidden folder with compromising photos of the doctor. Harrison with a much younger nurse, plus documents suggesting he was diverting expensive medications from the hospital. "Mr. Sullivan," Ashley told him that night, "your ex-wife has enough material to destroy Dr. Harrison's career. It's blackmail, plain and simple." Michael finally understood how Jennifer had gotten the promotion and the freedom to do whatever she wanted at the hospital. She was blackmailing her own boss. "But there's more," Ashley continued. "I found emails between her and a man named Brian Cooper. They're planning something big for tomorrow." Brian Cooper. Michael knew that name. He was an old acquaintance of Jennifer's, an accountant who had briefly worked at Michael's company years ago. Back then, Michael had fired him for suspected irregularities in the accounts. "Ashley, this Brian, former employee. Mine." "Really? So they've known each other for a while?" "Yes." "Fired?" "Him. Suspicions, theft." The puzzle pieces were starting to fall into place. Jennifer and Brian had planned this for years. The divorce, the bankruptcy of Michael's company, it had all been an elaborate trap. On the 13th day, the situation reached a critical point. Dr. Robert Anderson, the lawyer, returned to the hospital accompanied by Brian Cooper. Michael immediately recognized the dishonest accountant he had fired. "Dr. Williams," the lawyer said, "I've brought Mr. Brian Cooper, who was Mr. Sullivan's business partner. He can attest to the unstable mental state Michael has been showing in recent months." "It's true, Doctor," Brian lied smoothly. "Michael has been displaying erratic behavior, making irrational financial decisions. Those of us who worked with him expected something like this to happen." Dr. Williams listened carefully, but Michael noticed the doctor still had doubts about the whole situation. "Gentlemen, Doctor," Williams finally said, "I understand your concern, but I can't make hasty decisions about a patient's condition. I'll request a more detailed psychiatric evaluation." "Doctor," Jennifer interjected, "with all due respect, Every day that passes is a loss for Michael. The bills are piling up, and if we don't manage his assets soon, he could lose everything. What kind of assets are we talking about? Asked Dr. Williams. Investments, a checking account, and some holdings that are losing value quickly, Brian lied. Michael knew they were talking about the safe and the secret investments he kept. Somehow they had discovered his financial reserves. Well, Dr. Williams said, clearly reluctant, I'll review the documentation, but any final decision will have to wait for the psychiatric evaluation. When the three of them left the room, Michael realized time was running out. The psychiatric evaluation could expose his act, but if he kept pretending, Jennifer and Brian would gain access to his accounts. That afternoon, Emma returned to the hospital once more, but this time she was different. There was a determination in her eyes that Michael recognized well, the same determination he had when facing tough problems. "Dad," Emma said, sitting by the bed, "I know you can hear me, and I know something's very wrong here." Michael felt his heart race. His daughter suspected something. "I talked to Uncle Richard today. He told me things about the finances that don't add up with what Mom's been saying," Emma continued. "And I also found out Grandma's house was sold without me knowing." Emma paused, studying her father's face intently. "Dad, if you can really hear me, I need you to give me a sign. Any sign. Because I'm going to find out what's happening with or without your help." Michael made the riskiest decision since he'd started this charade. Very slowly, almost imperceptibly, he moved the little finger on his left hand. Emma saw the movement and her eyes filled with tears. "I knew it," she whispered. "Dad, you're faking it, aren't you?" Michael moved his finger again. "Oh my God, why? What's going on?" It was impossible to explain everything through finger movements, but Michael tried blinking once for yes and twice for no, establishing a basic form of communication. "Dad, is this about Mom? Is she doing something wrong?" One blink. "Is it about money?" One blink. "Is she trying to steal from you?" One blink. Emma covered her mouth with her hands, trying to process the shocking revelation. "Dad, what do you want me to do?" Michael thought quickly. He needed Emma to find Ashley and team up with her. Together, they could gather enough evidence to expose Jennifer. Through a series of blinks, Michael managed to communicate to Emma that she should look for the nurse's aide, Ashley. Emma understood and promised to return the next day with a plan. On the 14th day, Emma returned with someone Michael never expected to see. Dorothy Miller, his former secretary and one of the people he trusted most in the world. Dorothy was a 60-year-old widow who had worked with Michael for over a decade before retiring. "Mr. Michael," Dorothy said, stepping closer to the bed, "Emma told me everything. I know you can hear me." Emma had explained the situation to Dorothy, who immediately offered to help. Dorothy knew Michael's business better than anyone and had access to information that could be crucial. "Sir," Dorothy continued, "I brought copies of company documents that prove Jennifer and Brian have been planning this for a long time." Michael blinked anxiously, asking for more details. "I found records of unauthorized access to the company system after hours, always when you were traveling. Brian was copying confidential financial files months before he was fired." This confirmed Michael's suspicions. Brian had stolen information about his personal accounts even before being caught and dismissed. "And there's more," Dorothy said. "Jennifer had scheduled meetings with divorce lawyers long before she asked for a separation. She's been planning this for at least 2 years. At that moment, Ashley appeared at the door. Emma quickly called her in and made introductions. "Ashley," Emma said, "this is Dorothy Miller, who worked with my dad for years. She brought important information." "That's great," Ashley replied, "because I have news too. I managed to record a conversation with Jennifer this morning." Ashley showed her phone with the recording. In the conversation, Jennifer was arguing with Brian about speeding up the timeline because Michael was showing signs of recovery faster than they expected. "They're planning something for tonight," Ashley explained. "They're bringing papers to transfer his accounts to a shell company Brian set up." "A shell company?" Dorothy asked. "Yes. In the recording, they mentioned they already have the paperwork ready. They're going to use the forged power of attorney to transfer everything. Michael knew it was time to act. He couldn't wait any longer. Dorothy, Michael whispered, making an effort to speak softly, need to call Richard. Oh my God, Mr. Michael, Dorothy exclaimed. You can speak. Quiet. They might come back. Emma held her father's hand, overwhelmed to hear his voice again. Dad, what do you want us to do? Richard. Lawyer, real, police. Ashley checked the hallway to make sure no one was around. Mr. Michael, they'll be here at 8 tonight. That's when Jennifer said Mercy General Hospital is emptiest and there's less chance of being interrupted. Michael looked at his watch. It was 5 in the afternoon. They had 3 hours to prepare everything. Dorothy, Michael said, making an effort to speak more clearly, do you still have contact with that criminal defense lawyer who helped me a few years ago? Dr. Jonathan Graves? Yes, I do. Call him, now, and bring Richard too. What do we do in the meantime? Asked Emma. Ashley will keep recording. You two will hide here in the room when they arrive. We need witnesses and evidence. The plan was risky, but it was their only chance to expose Jennifer and Brian before they could pull off their scheme. At 7 that evening, Richard arrived at the hospital accompanied by Dr. Jonathan Graves. When they saw Michael awake and talking, their reaction was total shock. Michael, what kind of nonsense is this? Richard asked. Were you faking being sick? It was the only way to find out what Jennifer was planning, Michael quickly explained. Richard, she forged a power of attorney and is trying to steal everything left after the divorce. Dr. Jonathan Graves, a 50-year-old man with extensive experience in financial crimes, listened carefully as Michael laid out the whole situation. This is very serious, Michael, the lawyer said. Document forgery, blackmail, embezzlement. If we can prove all this, they could get 5 to 10 years in prison. We have recordings, Ashley said, showing her phone, and documents Dorothy brought. Great, but we need to catch them in the act so the evidence is irrefutable. The plan was set quickly. Richard and Dr. Jonathan would hide in the bathroom attached to the room. Emma and Dorothy would stay behind the curtain, separating the bed area from the rest of the room. Ashley would remain in the hallway, pretending to work but actually controlling the recordings on her phone. Michael would go back to pretending to be unconscious, but this time with one crucial difference. He'd be fully aware and ready to act at the right moment. At 8:15, Jennifer arrived with Brian Cooper and their lawyer, Dr. Robert Anderson. They entered the room whispering, thinking Michael was sedated. Perfect, Brian said, approaching the bed. He's completely out of it. I told you it would work, Jennifer replied. I increased his sedative dose this morning. Dr. Robert opened a briefcase and pulled out several documents. Here are the papers for the asset transfers. With the power of attorney you provided, I can sign everything in his name. What about the bank accounts? Brian asked. They're already being moved to the company we set up, Jennifer said. I used the codes he mumbled last week. Codes you claimed, he said while delirious. Doctor. Robert corrected. Exactly, Jennifer lied. He was having nightmares about losing money, so he kept repeating the safe passwords. Michael had to make a tremendous effort not to react. They were openly admitting they'd used information obtained through deception to access his accounts. What about his daughter? Brian asked. Won't she suspect? Emma's just a child, Jennifer said dismissively. She believes everything I say. I've already convinced her. Her father left her nothing. Hearing Jennifer talk about Emma like that filled Michael with a rage he'd never felt before. His ex-wife wasn't just stealing from him, she was emotionally manipulating their own daughter. Well, Dr. Robert said, let's get down to business then. I need his fingerprint to authenticate the documents. Jennifer approached the bed and took Michael Sullivan's right hand. As she guided his fingers over the papers, Michael memorized every detail of the documents he could see. They were transfers to a company called Cooper Consulting LLC, clearly a shell company created by Brian. Done, said Dr. Robert Anderson. With these signatures and fingerprints, you now have legal control over all of Mr. Michael Sullivan's remaining assets. Including the bank vault? Brian asked eagerly. Especially the vault, Jennifer confirmed. That's where the real money is, over $200,000 he hid from me during the divorce. And the mother-in-law's house you sold? Brian asked. That money is already in the company account. $250,000, clean. Michael knew the time had come. They had completely incriminated themselves, admitting not only the current scam but also the illegal sale of the house that belonged to Emma. Slowly, Michael opened his eyes. That was a very interesting conversation, he said, sitting up in bed. The shock on Jennifer's face was absolute. Brian dropped the papers he was holding and Dr. Anderson turned pale. Michael? Jennifer stammered. How am I awake? Michael finished, standing up from the bed. Because I was never in a coma, Jennifer. I was pretending to find out exactly what you were planning. At that moment, Richard and Dr. Jonathan Graves stepped out of the bathroom, while Emma and Dorothy Miller appeared from behind the curtain. Ashley entered the room holding her phone, which had recorded the entire conversation. Congratulations, Dr. Graves said sarcastically. You've just confessed to document forgery, embezzlement, blackmail, and financial fraud, all recorded in high definition. Brian tried to run for the door, but Richard blocked the exit. No one's going anywhere until we settle this, Richard said firmly. This is a trap, Dr. Anderson shouted. You tricked us. We tricked you? Michael laughed bitterly. You were stealing from a man you thought was in a coma. Who tricked who here? Jennifer looked at Emma in desperation. Emma, sweetheart, you don't understand. Your father is lying. He really was sick. Mom, I heard everything, Emma said, tears in her eyes. You sold Grandma's house, the one that was mine. You lied about the inheritance Dad left. And on top of that, you said I'm just a kid who believes anything. Emma, please. No, Mom, it's over. I grew up today. I grew up a lot. Dr. Graves took control of the situation. Mr. Brian Cooper and Dr. Robert Anderson, you are formally charged with involvement in a scheme of embezzlement and document forgery. Mrs. Jennifer, in addition to these charges, you will also answer for blackmail and breach of trust. Wait, Brian said desperately. We can make a deal. We'll return everything. Too late, Dr. Graves replied. Crimes have been committed, and there's enough evidence for criminal prosecution. But then, Michael did something no one expected. Jonathan, hold on a second, he said. Before we call the authorities, I want to propose something different. Everyone looked at Michael in surprise. I don't want Emma to go through the trauma of seeing her mother arrested. And frankly, I don't want to spend the next few years of my life in courtrooms and lawsuits. Michael, what are you suggesting? Richard asked. A solution that doesn't involve prison, but ensures justice and restitution. Michael turned directly to Jennifer. You will return every penny you stole. Not just the money from the vault and the accounts, but also the value of Emma's house. You'll transfer it back to her name, as your mother's will intended. Michael, I don't have all that money anymore, Jennifer began. You'll find a way, Michael interrupted. You'll sell the apartment you bought with the stolen money. You'll undo the fraudulent investments. You'll do whatever it takes. And if she doesn't? Asked Dr. Jonathan. Then we call the police and she faces criminal charges for everything, said Michael. But if she cooperates, if she returns everything and stays out of our lives completely, I won't press charges. What about us? Asked Brian, still hopeful. You leave Chicago, Michael said coldly. I never want to see you again. And if you ever try pulling a stunt like this with anyone else, I guarantee these recordings will end up with the police. Dad, said Emma, are you sure about this? They deserve to go to jail. Sweetheart, revenge won't give us back the time we lost. I'd rather use our energy to rebuild our lives than destroy theirs. Jennifer looked at Michael with a mix of surprise and shame. Why are you doing this? She asked. Why not turn me in? Because despite everything, you're Emma's mother, and because I've learned that forgiving hurts less than holding on to hate, Michael replied. Dr. Robert and Brian quickly accepted the offer. They knew it was a better deal than going to prison. Jennifer hesitated longer, but eventually agreed. But there's one condition, Michael added. You'll get help. You'll see a therapist to understand why you did all this. It wasn't just about the money, Jennifer. Something's deeply wrong if you could manipulate your own daughter like that. In the following days, the entire process of returning the assets was overseen by Dr. Jonathan Graves. Jennifer sold the luxury apartment she'd bought with the stolen money, undid the fraudulent investments, and transferred back to Emma the house that had belonged to her grandmother. It took nearly 2 months for everything to be fully resolved, but in the end, Michael had recovered not only his assets but also his daughter's trust. Brian Cooper and Dr. Robert Anderson left Chicago as promised. Brian moved to rural Michigan, where he tried to start over as an accountant in a small town. Dr. Robert lost his law license after an investigation by the Bar Association and ended up working as an informal legal consultant. Jennifer kept her part of the deal, but the humiliation of being exposed was too much for her to bear. She requested a transfer to another hospital in a different state and moved to Miami. True to her word, she sought psychological help, and over the following months, she began to understand the deep-seated issues that had led her to make those terrible choices. Dr. Harrison, the department head who had been blackmailed by Jennifer, was initially terrified when he learned the situation had been exposed. But Michael, in another act of generosity, chose not to report him. Instead, he suggested Dr. Harrison seek help to address his personal and professional struggles. Ashley received a significant reward from Michael for her courage in helping him during the toughest moments. She used the money to take an advanced nursing course and now works as a head nurse at another hospital, always alert for suspicious situations that could harm patients. Dorothy Miller, who had been instrumental in gathering the documentary evidence, was invited by Michael to work with him again. Even though she was retired, she agreed to work part-time, helping him reorganize his finances and set up a new business. 6 months after that traumatic ordeal, Michael and Emma had built a stronger relationship than ever before. The young woman, who had matured greatly during the crisis, decided she wanted to study law to help people going through similar situations. "Dad," Emma said one day, as they had lunch together at a restaurant near the new company Michael had started, "I learned something really important from all this." "What was it, sweetheart?" "That the people we love the most are sometimes capable of hurting us deeply, but I also learned that forgiving doesn't mean forgetting or accepting what was done. It means choosing not to let the hurt control our lives." Michael smiled, proud of his daughter's wisdom. "You've grown so much, Emma. More than you should have had to in such a short time. Maybe, but if all of this made me stronger and wiser, then it was worth it." The consulting firm Michael had started with Dorothy Miller and Richard Cooper quickly prospered. They specialized in helping small business owners organize their finances and protect themselves from fraud. The traumatic experience Michael had lived through became valuable knowledge he used to protect others. Jennifer, in Miami, eventually managed to stabilize her life. Therapy helped her understand that her obsession with financial security stemmed from childhood traumas related to the poverty she had faced growing up. She wasn't a bad person. She had just made terrible decisions out of fear and insecurity. A year after the events at the hospital, Jennifer sent Emma a letter. It was a long letter full of sincere apologies and explanations for her actions. She didn't ask for immediate forgiveness or try to justify what she had done. She simply admitted her mistakes and expressed how much she missed her daughter. Emma took several days to decide whether to respond. When she finally wrote back, her reply was mature and measured. "Mom, I got your letter and read it many times. I know you're getting help now and understand how much you hurt me. I can't say I've completely forgiven you yet because it still hurts a lot, but I also don't want to carry this anger forever. Maybe one day we can talk again. For now, I need more time. Take care. Emma." 2 years later, Michael met Sarah, a 40-year-old psychologist who worked at the hospital where he had pretended to be in a coma. She knew the whole story, but instead of judging him, she admired the courage he had shown in uncovering the truth and the wisdom to choose forgiveness over revenge. Sarah and Michael began dating slowly, building a relationship based on complete honesty. Emma approved of the relationship from the start, happy to see her father smile again. One Sunday afternoon, 3 years after those traumatic days at the hospital, Michael, Emma, and Sarah were in the backyard of the new house they had bought together. It was a simple but comfortable home, with a garden where Michael had planted roses and jasmine. "Dad," said Emma, now in her second year of law school, "do you ever regret not sending Mom to prison?" Michael thought for a moment before answering. "Never, sweetheart. Prison wouldn't have gotten our money back faster, and it wouldn't have healed the emotional wounds. More importantly, it wouldn't have taught your mother what she really needed to learn." What was that? That the consequences of our actions aren't just legal, they're moral, emotional, and spiritual. Your mother lost far more than she would have in prison. She lost her daughter's trust, her self-respect, and the family she had. Those are much harsher punishments than any judge could impose. Sarah, who had been listening while watering the plants, smiled at Michael. "And you gained something very valuable too," she said. "What was that?" "Proof that it's possible to be strong without being cruel. That it's possible to seek justice without seeking revenge. This is rare in today's world." That evening, while watching a movie together, Emma received a text on her phone. It was from Jennifer, who now sent occasional messages, always respecting the boundaries Emma had set. "Hi, sweetheart. I know you're not ready to talk yet, and I understand. I just wanted to say I graduated as an accounting technician here in Miami. I'll use my knowledge to help underprivileged people organize their finances. Maybe this way I can make up a little for the harm I caused. I love you, Mum." Emma showed the message to Michael and Sarah. "She's trying to start over by doing something positive," Sarah observed. "It's a start," Michael said. "Maybe she's really learned something." "Dad, do you think I should ever give her a chance?" "Honey, that's a decision only you can make, but remember, forgiving doesn't mean blindly trusting again. It means giving the person a chance to prove they've truly changed. And if she hasn't changed, then you walk away again, but with peace of mind knowing you at least tried." 4 years after the hospital incident, Michael was giving a lecture on financial management at a university when a young student asked a question that surprised him. "Professor Sullivan, I heard you went through a very difficult experience with financial fraud in your family. How did that change your perspective on trust?" Michael thought carefully before answering. "It changed a lot. Before I trusted because I was naive. After that experience, I went through a phase where I didn't trust anyone. Now I trust wisely." "What do you mean?" "I trust, but I also verify. I love, but I also protect my vulnerabilities. I forgive, but I don't forget the lessons learned. It's possible to be open and loving without being vulnerable to scams." After the lecture, Michael drove home thinking about how his life had completely changed. The consulting firm was thriving, his relationship with Sarah was solid and honest, and Emma was growing into a strong, wise young woman. Most importantly, he had learned that courage isn't just about fighting, it's also about forgiving. That intelligence isn't just about uncovering the truth, it's about knowing what to do with it. That night, Emma came home with news. "Dad, Sarah, I have something to tell you," she said, sitting in the living room with a nervous smile. "What is it?" they both asked at the same time. "I've decided I want to talk to Mom. Not in person yet, but over video call. I think I'm ready." Michael and Sarah exchanged a knowing glance. "Are you sure, honey?" "I am. It's been 4 years. She's getting help. She's working. She's trying to rebuild her life, honestly. And I miss my mom, despite everything." "Do you want me to stay nearby during the call?" Michael offered. "No, Dad. This is something I need to do alone. But thank you for asking." 2 weeks later, Emma video called Jennifer. The conversation lasted 2 hours and was emotionally intense for both. Jennifer cried a lot, apologized again, and showed pictures of the work she was doing to help underprivileged families. Emma, in turn, explained how hard it had been growing up without her mother, but also how that experience had made her stronger and more determined. "Mom," Emma said at the end of the call, "I still can't say I fully trust you, but I can say I don't feel angry anymore, and maybe that's a start." "It's more than I deserve," Jennifer replied. "Thank you for giving me this chance, sweetheart." 5 years after pretending to be in a coma to uncover the truth about his ex-wife, Michael celebrated his wedding to Sarah in a small but love-filled ceremony. Emma was the maid of honor, Richard was the best man, and Dorothy Miller was the mother figure Michael had never had. During his speech at the reception, Michael spoke about the lessons he had learned. 5 years ago, I thought I'd lost everything. My money, my family, my dignity. Today, I know I had actually found everything. The truth about the people around me, the strength I didn't know I had, and the value of forgiveness. He looked at Emma, who was moved by his words. My daughter taught me that growing up doesn't mean hardening your heart. It means learning to protect it without closing it off. She went through an experience that could have made her bitter and distrustful, but instead, she became a wise and compassionate young woman. Sarah held Michael's hand as he continued, and Sarah taught me that it's possible to love again after deep betrayal. Not a naive love, but a mature one, built on mutual respect and total honesty. During the reception, Emma received a message from Jennifer, who had been told about the wedding. Congratulations to your father and Sarah. I know I can't be there, but I want you to know I'm rooting for your happiness. One day, when you're ready, I'd love to meet Sarah. She seems like a special person. Love, Mum. Emma showed the message to Michael and Sarah. What do you think? She asked. I think your mother is really trying to change, Sarah said, and I think you're mature enough to decide what role you want her to have in your life. Take your time, Michael added. The best decisions are made with patience and wisdom. 6 months after the wedding, Emma graduated with honors from law school. In her graduation speech, she spoke about how difficult experiences can turn into wisdom if we have the courage to learn from them. 5 years ago, I discovered that the person I trusted most in the world had betrayed me in an unthinkable way, she told the audience. I could have become bitter and distrustful, but I learned that trust isn't something you give or take away completely. It's something that grows gradually, based on consistent actions over time. After graduation, Emma opened a law firm specializing in family law and financial fraud. Her first client was a 70-year-old woman who had been robbed by her own son. Emma's personal experience made her especially effective in helping people who had suffered family betrayals. A year later, on a Saturday afternoon, Jennifer finally came to Chicago to visit Emma. It was a tense but necessary meeting. They met at a neutral cafe far from the painful memories of the past. You've grown so much, Jennifer said, looking at her daughter. You're so beautiful, so grown up. I had to grow up fast, Emma replied without bitterness. I know, and I'm sorry for that. They talked for 3 hours. Jennifer spoke about her therapy, the work she was doing, and how she had learned to deal with her insecurities without hurting others. Emma talked about law school, her new firm, and how she was building a life based on honesty and transparency. Can I meet Sarah? Jennifer asked at the end. Maybe next time, Emma replied. Let's take it slow, Mom. I'm 22 now. I'm not a child who accepts everything without question. I know, and that's good. It means you won't repeat my mistakes. When Jennifer left, Emma called Michael. Dad, I met with Mom today. How was it? Hard, but necessary. She really has changed. I still don't know if we'll ever have a normal relationship, but at least now I know she's become a better person. And you? How do you feel? At peace. Finally, at peace. 7 years after those dramatic days at the hospital, Michael was in his office when he received an unexpected call. It was from a police officer from rural Illinois. Mr. Sullivan, my name is Officer Williams. I'm calling because we've arrested a man scamming elderly people here in the area. When we investigated, we found he has a long record, including a case involving you a few years back. His name is Brian Cooper. Michael sighed. He had hoped Brian had truly turned his life around. What do you need from me, officer? Your recordings and documents from that time could help establish a pattern of behavior. That would be important to ensure he can't harm anyone else. Michael agreed to provide the evidence. Even though he had chosen forgiveness over revenge, he wouldn't let Brian keep hurting innocent people. Brian was sentenced to 8 years in prison for multiple scams targeting the elderly. During the trial, Michael was called as a witness and shared his experience calmly, showing no anger or desire for vengeance. Mr. Sullivan, the prosecutor asked, do you regret not pressing charges against Mr. Cooper back then? I don't regret it, Michael replied. At the time, I believed he could change. Unfortunately, I was wrong. But that doesn't invalidate the decision I made. Every situation should be judged on its own. Dr. Robert Anderson, the corrupt lawyer, had managed to rebuild his life honestly. He was working as a legal consultant in a small town, helping people with simple matters and always staying within the law. When he heard about Brian's arrest, he called Michael. "Mr. Sullivan, I heard Brian was arrested. I wanted you to know I'm honoring the agreement we made. I've never gotten involved in anything shady again." "I'm glad to hear that, Dr. Anderson. It proves change is possible when someone truly wants it. You gave me a second chance when you could have ruined me. I won't waste that opportunity." 8 years after faking his coma, Michael was giving an interview for a TV program about financial fraud in families. During the interview, he spoke about the importance of forgiving, without forgetting the lessons learned. "Many people ask me if I regret not sending my ex-wife to prison," Michael told the interviewer. "The answer is no. Prison is a form of punishment and prevention, but it's not the only one. Sometimes the natural consequences of our actions are far more effective than any legal punishment." "How so?" "My ex-wife lost her daughter's trust, had to start over from scratch in another state, and spent years in therapy to understand her issues. Those were much deeper consequences than a few months in jail. And did she really change?" "Apparently, yes. Today she works helping those in need, lives a simple and honest life, and is slowly rebuilding her relationship with our daughter. If I had sent her to prison, would she have gone through this transformation? I don't know." After the interview, Michael drove home, thinking about how his perspective on justice had evolved over the years. Justice wasn't just about punishment, it was also about restoration, learning, and growth. At home, Sarah was preparing dinner while chatting with Emma, who had brought her boyfriend over to meet her parents. Emma's boyfriend was a young doctor named Ethan, who worked at the same hospital where the whole story had begun. "Dr. Ethan," Michael said during dinner, "you work at Mercy General Hospital, right?" "Yes, Mr. Sullivan. Emma told me your story. It's quite remarkable." "And how's Ashley? Does she still work there?" "Ashley, she's the head nurse now. One of the most respected professionals at the hospital. She always speaks of you with great affection." Michael smiled. He was happy to hear that Ashley had thrived. She had been instrumental in helping him during those difficult days. 9 years later, Emma and Ethan married in a beautiful ceremony. Jennifer was invited to the wedding, and for the first time in nearly a decade was present for an important moment in her daughter's life. During the celebration, Jennifer approached Michael. "Michael, I want to thank you," she said. "Thank me for what?" "For giving me the chance to become a better person. If you had sent me to prison, I would have come out even more bitter and resentful. Instead, I had to face the consequences of my actions and truly change." "Jennifer, everyone has their own journey. Yours led you to a dark place, but you found your way back. I'll never fully undo the harm I caused, but I can try to do good for the rest of my life. That's what matters. Not what we did yesterday, but what we choose to do today." 10 years after those dramatic days at the hospital, Michael was retiring from the consulting firm he had built with Dorothy Miller and Richard. During his retirement party, he reflected on all the lessons he had learned. 10 years ago, he said in his farewell speech, "I thought pretending to be in a coma to uncover the truth about my ex-wife was the craziest thing I could ever do. Today I know the real madness would have been letting anger and revenge control my life after I learned the truth." He looked at Emma, who sat in the audience beside Ethan and their first child, a 2-year-old boy named Noah. "My daughter taught me that growing up doesn't mean hardening your heart. My brother Richard showed me that family isn't just blood, it's the people who stand by you in tough times. Dorothy taught me that loyalty and honesty never go out of style." He turned to Sarah. "And my wife taught me it's possible to love again after betrayal, but that new love must be built on a solid foundation of honesty and mutual respect." In the audience, Ashley was present, along with Dr. Williams, who had retired a few years earlier. Even Dr. Robert Anderson had come from his small town in rural Michigan to honor Michael's retirement. "The most important lesson I've learned," Michael continued, "is that forgiveness isn't a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. Forgiving doesn't mean forgetting or accepting the unacceptable. It means choosing not to let past pain destroy future possibilities. After the party, the family gathered at home for an intimate dinner. Jennifer was there, now reintegrated into the family, but respecting the boundaries that had been established over the years. "Grandpa Michael," little Noah said, struggling with the name, "Mommy says you're a hero." Michael laughed and lifted his grandson onto his lap. "I'm no hero, Noah. Just a man who learned that sometimes you have to go through hard times to discover who you really are." "What do you mean?" "When you grow up, you'll understand that sometimes the people we love most can hurt us deeply. And when that happens, you'll have to choose, stay angry forever or forgive and move forward. Which is better? Forgiving is always better, Noah. Not because people deserve it, but because you deserve peace." That night, after everyone had left, Michael and Sarah stood on the porch, gazing at the stars. "Have you ever wondered what your life would be like if you hadn't discovered what Jennifer was doing?" Sarah asked. "Sometimes I do," Michael replied. "I probably would have lost everything anyway and never known why." He would live forever with the feeling that he had failed at something. What if you had found out everything in a different way, without pretending to be in a coma? Maybe I wouldn't have been able to gather enough evidence. Maybe she would have gotten away with it. Who knows? "Do you think you'd do it all again?" Michael thought for a long moment. "I would. But today, with the experience I have, maybe I'd do some things differently. Maybe I'd try an honest conversation first, before resorting to drastic measures. What if she lied? Then I'd do exactly what I did. Sometimes people only show their true nature when they think no one is watching." End of story. Now tell us what you thought of this story and where you're watching from. Do you believe Michael made the right choice by forgiving Jennifer instead of sending her to prison? Share your honest opinion in the comments. Your input means so much to us. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other gripping stories like this one.